Welcome to Paige's Perspective, where I help you find your inner strength to cope with life. Last week, I completely dropped the ball and forgot to record an episode for Friday. So as I mentioned in our Wednesday re-release, life is lifing. We just got the rest of our schedule for the next 4.5 months, and yeah, it's intense. But I'm here for it and I'm living for it. We're going to be re-releasing a few episodes in the next coming Wednesdays, but we'll hopefully stay on track with our Monday and Friday episodes. You know, we try to practice what we preach, and family comes first, and our kids are at the age where we are really involved, and it's amazing. So just a heads up that we may be off and on a bit the next few months, but we will try our best to get out as much content as we can. You know, I know that consistency is important, but so are priorities. So anyway, thank you for being here and tuning in to hear our rambles. We appreciate it and really enjoy creating this space for you. It fills our cup just as much. So on to this week's topic. Matt and I have been working with the Reclaiming You Wheelies the past couple of weeks on limiting beliefs, which is one of my favorite topics because it's internal work that can really push us to make some significant changes in our lives. I've been doing this work for many, many years, almost 10 years. And from doing this work with others for years now and understanding my experience more, many spouses and partners in these relationship dynamics are very hard on themselves. You know, they find it really challenging to see the good in themselves, which is understandable if they've been betrayed or demeaned or blamed or, you know, just so many things from their most intimate relationships can make them feel as though they aren't good enough. And some of it may stem from childhood, but not always. So what is a limiting belief? It is a false, self-imposed, or conscious conviction that restrict your actions, potential, and growth. They act as mental barriers that create excuses that you don't even question. So some examples would be like, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or I don't have time. I need to be perfect to succeed or be loved. I'm too old to learn new tricks. It's too late for me. It's too hard to change, or that won't work for me. These are typically formed to protect us from pain. They are perceived truths. They are not like simple passing thoughts, right? Like these are actually beliefs within the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Like we don't question these because we actually believe them to be facts. And when we believe these thoughts, it can cause some negative outcomes. They lead to procrastination, imposter syndrome, and missed opportunities. It's just really uncomfortable. There's a cost to having these thoughts. And it's not just about this whole process isn't about thinking positive stuff, right? Because positive thinking can just be a Band-Aid, while addressing the limiting beliefs in the root is like treating the actual wound. So we have to learn how to believe the positive thoughts and not just think them. It's a process and it's not going to happen overnight, but being aware is the first step, and then staying consistent will be helpful. So what we're asking when we question our beliefs is this belief actually true, or is it a fear-based story my nervous system keeps repeating? It's kind of wild how so many of us believe the negative things about ourselves, but when it comes to the great things, we question them. This episode is going to help you identify your limiting beliefs, name the cost, question the thought, who you are when you believe the thought, and turning the thought around. So let's just run through this. This is based on a worksheet Matt put together and shared with the Reclaiming You peeps. If you don't know what Reclaiming You is, Matt and I created an online program with a licensed therapist for spouses and partners that have been impacted by addiction or alcoholism within their most intimate relationship. It's 10 modules long. It's full of videos, exercises, we have reflections, and we offer a Wednesday support meeting for those in the program to connect and discuss some topics that we throw out there occasionally. So go to twfo.com for more info. And while you're there, check out the podcast merch. We have hoodies, t-shirts, beanies. I think we have a couple of sweatshirts left. We have water bottles, stickers, and recovery rocks. So if you don't want merch, totally cool. But maybe if you want to support the show, you can check out buymeacoffee.com/TWFO. This goes back into the show so that we can keep going. So we really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the topic of the limiting beliefs. I'm going to break everything down in steps. So step one is going to be identifying the limiting belief. So you're going to write one painful thought that keeps you looping. I'm going to read off a ton of examples, and I can relate to some of these. I can't survive without them, or I will never be loved again. I am too much. I failed my kids. If I leave, I'll regret it forever. If I stay, I'm weak. I'm not capable of handling life on my own. I can't support us financially. I'm too anxious. I'm just different than everyone else that seems to handle this. That won't work for me. If I'm not perfect, I'm nothing. My value comes from what I do, not who I am. So the rules for this portion is you're going to pick something painful. If it doesn't hurt a little, it's not going to reveal much. So everyone has one, but most of us have many. I went through this list and like I said, I've had a few of these before. And these are things that we've accepted about ourselves, and then they become part of our identity. Sometimes they serve a seemingly useful purpose. They keep us from getting hurt. They keep us from embarrassment. They keep us from taking impulsive actions that we would regret later. But there is a cost. There is always a cost. And the great thing about this exercise that I feel is that we can apply it to our lives at any time. There have been things in my life within the last couple of years where my limiting beliefs, came back to haunt me, and they were holding me back. And it was a reminder that this exercise is so important. And I'd honestly keep it as a daily or weekly reflection to remind ourselves, what we truly are capable of. Anyway, so let's move on to step 2. Step 2, you're going to name the cost. When our inner narrative, our thoughts, when they harden into rules about who we are, we stop listening to what's actually true. So we cling to what feels familiar because it's known, even when something else is just as possible and maybe even better. So with your painful thought in mind, answer this question below. When I believe this thought, what do you stay silent? Tolerate disrespect? Do you panic? Numb out? Don't make decisions? Don't trust yourself? Don't dream? Don't take chances? You stay small? You don't advocate for your needs? You may overfunction? You don't hold yourself or others accountable? You accept less than you deserve? You guarantee your worst fear coming true. Give this one some thought because it will be different for each of you. I circled a lot of these when I was going through my limiting beliefs because when I believe those things to be true, I tend to panic. I numb out. I don't make decisions. I don't take chances. And those are huge costs that I'm not willing to pay. This part is critical because we have to recognize that our limiting beliefs survive because they feel protective, but they have a cost. Fear is always selling you safety while quietly stealing your life. The life we want is on the other side of the fear we have yet to face. And this doesn't just apply to your relationship. This is for your life. All right, now we're going to go on to step 3. This is the 2 truth questions. So this was inspired by Byron Katie. Question 1 is going to be, is this absolutely objectively true? Not, does it feel true or do I believe it? But can I prove this 100% fact for every human in every timeline? Most beliefs collapse right there. For example, you think I can't survive outside of this relationship. The cost is I am miserable in my relationship and I feel trapped. Is it true that you won't make it on your own? No, it's not. You survived before this relationship. You know people who have survived after theirs ended. Another example will be if I speak my mind, people won't like the real me. I'm too much. I've had this thought before, okay? And the cost is I stay silent and I feel like I'm living someone else's life. So is it true that people won't like you and that you're too much? No, there are 8 billion people on this planet. Your tribe is out there. And the longer you stay silent, the less chance you'll have of meeting them. So people may in fact appreciate you more and respect you more for just being authentic. And sure, there will be those who don't like you, but so what? Move on. Question 2 is going to be, is this a fact or is it a story? I am telling, okay, let me start over for just a moment. Question 2. Is this a fact or is it a story I'm telling to manage fear? Example, I'll be alone forever. This is future tripping. Thinking he ruined my life. That's just meaning making. Thinking I'm not strong enough. That's identity-based fear. Thinking I'll regret it is catastrophizing. If I'm not in the relationship, then I'm nothing. That's black and white thinking. That's like, you got to label the distortions a little bit. We actually talk about cognitive distortions within our Reclaiming You program. It's one of my favorite modules because it really lets you look into your limiting beliefs from a different angle. But when you're naming the distortion, you're like, okay, oh, this isn't truth. This is my, nervous system and my thoughts just trying to protect me from pain. So the next step is going to be, who are you when you believe that? Finish the following sentence. When I believe this thought, I become what? You become small, desperate, angry, numb, frozen. You start betraying yourself. Yeah, when I believe these negative thoughts, I am not the best person I can be. Then you say, when I don't believe this thought, even for 10 seconds, when I don't believe this thought, even for 10 seconds, I become what? Curious, calmer, more grounded, more honest, more open, more powerful. This is the fun part. Notice how your identity changes when the story changes. Can you feel the change in your body when you allow yourself to challenge the belief and carry hope for an alternative? I do. I know that I do, because when I start thinking of those negative thoughts or those limiting beliefs, I'm like, ooh, it makes me tense. I'm like, I don't like this feeling. It's very uncomfortable. But when I don't believe that thought, like even for a few seconds, it's like this power comes over me of just feeling grounded and calm and open and just feeling okay. It's a really, really, really amazing feeling. You just got to give it a shot. Step 5, the turnaround. Okay. Take the original belief and rewrite it in 3 ways. You're going to turn it around. So let's say that you think that I can't survive without them. Rewrite it. I haven't learned yet how to trust myself. This is new. It's scary, but that's okay. Turn it into possibility. You might think I will always be alone. Change it to I don't even know who I could become yet. And then you're going to turn it into power. Instead of saying I'm stuck, you're saying, no, I'm not. I'm just afraid to choose. And they're really not affirmations. Like they're more honest versions of reality. We change our thoughts to change our lives. So before we move on to the next step, I want to pause here for a second, because this is usually the moment where people stall out. You've challenged the belief, you've softened it, you've created a more honest version of the story, and then something weird happens. Like you hesitate. And it's not because you don't understand the exercise, but because believing good things about yourself suddenly feels unsafe. I want to talk about that. A lot of us are afraid to believe the good things about ourselves because we were taught very early on that confidence and self-awareness can't coexist. That if you think too highly of yourself, you'll become arrogant. If you stop beating yourself up, you'll stop growing. Or if you allow pride, you'll turn into someone unlikable or selfish or just out of touch. So we keep ourselves in check. We stay humble by staying harsh. And for many of us, that wasn't random. It was conditioning. We learned that being self-critical made us more acceptable, more likable, less threatening, easier to live with, especially if you grew up in chaos or in relationships where taking up space caused problems. And you learned that self-attack was actually safer than trusting yourself. But here's the part I really want you to hear. The people who actually lack self-awareness are not worried about becoming cocky. They're not asking, what if I get too confident? They're not checking themselves. The fact that you may worry about that at all tells me something important about you. It tells me that you value integrity, you value reflection, you care about how you impact others. And that doesn't disappear when you build confidence. In fact, the opposite usually happens. Arrogance doesn't come from believing good things about yourself. When you really think about it, the most arrogant people you've met weren't secure. They were reactive. They couldn't tolerate being questioned. They couldn't admit when they're wrong. They needed, to control the room. And that's not what healthy confidence looks like. Healthy confidence is quieter. It's steadier. It's open. It can hear feedback without collapsing. It sounds more like, I know my strengths and I'm still open to learning. That's not ego. That's grounded self-trust. So for many of us, beating ourselves up becomes... It became a way to stay safe, right? Like if I'm already hard on myself, no one can accuse me of being full of myself. If I keep my expectations low, I won't be disappointed. If I shrink first, I won't be rejected. But there's a cost to that. Self-criticism doesn't make you humble. It makes you tired. It makes you anxious. It keeps you small. And growth doesn't require self-punishment. You don't need to hate yourself into, becoming better. So as we move into the next step, notice if there's resistance. Notice if your brain says, oh, this feels uncomfortable, or this feels arrogant, or this feels fake. And it's not true. That's an old rule you learned that, I stay safe by staying small. And just because that rule once protected you doesn't mean it deserves to run your life now. So with that in mind, we're not moving into the next step to inflate your ego. We're doing it to anchor you in what's actually true, because we can have humility and be confident at the same time. We tend to have that black and white thinking of, if I'm confident, I'm arrogant. If I see my faults, I'm stable. But that's just not real. So, amazing and true things about you. This is step 6. Now that you've seen how your brain lies to protect you, we're going to anchor it in what actually is true. So you're going to write out 25 amazing and true things about you. I know this sounds daunting. I remember the very first time I did this exercise, I was like, whoa, I don't think I can come up with all of this. But I'm going to give you some examples to get you started. But deep down all the amazing things about you. So I'm still standing despite believing not long ago I wouldn't make it if they relapsed. Let's say that they relapsed. I have survived 100% of my hardest days. I feel pain because I care. I have an empathetic heart. I'm an empathetic person, and that is a blessing. I'm capable of learning and growing. I've made brave choices before. I'm kind and considerate. I'm a good parent. I'm loved. I love others. I'm a good listener. I work hard. I'm creative. I'm excellent at managing big problems. I'm funny. I'm insightful. I won an award for something. I would want a friend like me, or I have good ideas, or I'm scrappy. I always find a way. So these are just some examples. There's a lot of things that you can throw out there, because I know that you can come up with 25 amazing and true things about you. Give it a shot. It's a really, really good exercise. But the limiting beliefs did serve a purpose at one point. Maybe they weren't meant to be held forever. Addictive relationship dynamics teach, don't trust yourself, don't rock the boat, your needs are dangerous, your perceptions are wrong. You didn't form these limiting beliefs because you were weak. You formed them because you were trying to survive. They made sense once. They protected you when you didn't have better tools or more safety, but you're not there anymore. And just because a belief helped you survive a chapter of your life doesn't mean it belongs in the next one. If this work felt uncomfortable, that's okay. If all you did today was notice a story you've been telling yourself, that counts. Awareness is the beginning of change. And you don't need to suddenly feel amazing about yourself. That's not the goal here. The goal is just to find honesty and to find truth and learning to relate to yourself with a little less fear and a little more kindness. So take what resonated, leave what didn't. And when those old thoughts come back, because they will, come back to this work. Thank you for being here. That's all I have for this week. Until next time, I'm Paige. Bye. 1, 2, 3, 4.